So honestly, broadly speaking, I think like the fundamental problem is the right angle. Um, the right angle is a construct, is a complete construct. It exists nowhere in nature. Obviously, we have to have a geometry that's based probably on Fibonacci numbers because that's the naturally occurring actual geometry. The 90-degree angle and this concept of like a mathematical grid based on 90 degrees to one another, that's a construct. That's what the matrix is. That's the theoretical, non-existent closed system that is bereft of enough energy. It's not real. These are just some thoughts I've been having. Like a mathematic and a physics based on 90-degree angles, it's a self-imposed false limitation. It's a construct, so it will never lead to the truth of reality. And like even as we go deeper into quantum physics starts to not be at 90-degree angles. That's why we get all these like strange phenomena that we don't actually know how to deal with because they're functioning in reality, but our math and our physics are like functioning in a construct that is false, like 90 degrees. I mean, that doesn't make, okay, yeah, you can measure up and down, you can measure like forward and back, you can measure right to left, but then on top of that we have time, which is apparently an illusion, but is not 90 degrees to the other 90-degree orthogonal planes. Anyways, so I've been thinking, like, I noticed, over the last 15 years and the role of education. So in our society, we have a lot of emphasis on the role of science and technology. And we tend to put down and devalue art and culture. And I especially had this experience where I'm a McMaster grad, and McMaster is a science and engineering heavy university. So definitely the humanities part it's not really respected. And the thing that I've learned over 15 years of, having my BA is actually the role of humanities and the role of arts and culture is to direct the use of the science and the technology. Because ultimately the science and the technology is really important. That knowledge is important, but its application is intended to be in the benefit of the humans, right? It ultimately, all science and technology should be in the aid of humanity. And this is where we come up to a really interesting idea because, well, if science and technology is meant to be to the benefit of humanity, that requires for us to have a collective consensus around what is the benefit of humanity? Like, where are we going as a species? And I think that this is challenging because, we live in an era where we are quite connected and there's quite a lot of communication. And so more so than ever, there's more idea exchange, which is great. But we're also, there is this desire to control information and to curate a worldview, which is also made possible by widespread information. But if we look at ourselves as a species, like we do not have a global consensus around who we are and where we come from. Certainly, and the mainstream view of who we are as a species, it is so lacking in scientific, actual empirical evidence that when you actually look at it, it has to be false. Like, we do not have evidence for us evolving on the planet, even though we've been working with that theory for like the last 150 years. And if Darwin were alive today and he had the last like century and a half of data, he would conclude that there is not enough evidence saying that we evolved on planet Earth. But when I say that, that's like so fucking fringe. Okay? So say, if we don't know who we are and where we come from, how can we know where we're going? And I think like right now, as a species, we're kind of confused. Broadly speaking, we're confused. We're also living in like, there's a lot of, mass media and mainstream culture has resulted in a lot of like, it propagates a lot of lies. And if you live with those lies, you constantly hit walls. Like, there's no intelligent life out there. We live in a vast universe of nothing. But there is evidence for intelligent life. There's plenty of evidence for intelligent life. It just doesn't get talked about a lot. And again, that's another really interesting thing because right now in our civilization, the last 100 or 50 years or so, a little bit less than that, we've been using fossil fuels to fuel ourselves. No one else in the galaxy is using fossil fuels. And then, well, okay, it kind of seems logical that maybe our destiny as a species is to get off the rock, because the rock tends to be unstable. Like, we have to be able to move it around or like travel. But if you believe that fossil fuels are the only source of energy because you're in the 90-degree angle construct, then you can't get off the rock because there's not enough fossil fuels. So there are just mainstream lies that are being propagated that need to be dispelled. And this is the role of culture and art and humanities.